Now this finally seems to be working. So another attempt at live maths. Just going to email a student. Now this finally seems to be working. So another attempt at live maths. Just going to email. Okay, here we go. Right, so I am live. It could be that nobody's watching, but can watch it again afterwards. So I am going to briefly go through once again rearranging equations with the subject on both sides. Oh, somebody's managed to join me, so good. I wonder if that's pupil in MYP3 that was just emailing me. I hope so. Okay, so I'll find a bit of pen here. There you go, that's a good one. So 6x plus v equals 3x plus w. So I've been doing this with MYP 3 viewers now. Brilliant. I've been doing this with MYP2 and MYP3. It's a little bit on the difficult side for MYP2. So the MYP2 student who mailed me asking for a bit of help with it, don't worry too much. 6x plus v equals 3x plus w. I'm trying to rearrange that as an equation that says x equals something with all of the other letters in. So at the moment I've got x's on both sides. So I'd quite like to ultimately have x on one side and all the other stuff on the other side. So I'm going to take away as much x as I can from both sides. So I've got 6 x's here, but only 3 here. So the very most x I can take away from both sides is the 3x. So if I take away 3x, it disappears from the right, but then I've also got to take away 3x from the left. So 6x becomes only 3x. So I've got 3x plus v equals w. I'd like to have all of the x stuff on one side and all of the other stuff on the other side. So I'd quite like to get rid of that plus v. So I'm going to get rid of the plus v by subtracting it, take away v, but then I've got to subtract v from the other side as well, because an equation is like a balance. So 3x equals w minus v. I don't want to know what 3x's are. I want to know what 1x is on its own. So I'm going to divide everything by 3 to get from 3x's to a single x. But because an equation is like a balance, whatever I do to one side, I've got to do the same to the other side as well. So I've got to divide the right by v as well. And x equals w minus v divided by 3. And that's the final answer for the first one. We've rearranged it, making x the subject of the equation. So we've rearranged it as x equals something with all the other stuff. Can you just give me a quick thumbs up if you're watching this, so I know how many actual viewers I've got? It says 3. I don't know whether one of them is me or what's going on, but now it says 2 again. So a quick thumbs up if you are watching, so that I know. And then I'll go on to the next question. Ax plus 1 equals 2x plus b. Now remember, these won't necessarily be the questions that you get on your iMaths, but the structure of them tends to be similar. So I'd like all the x's on one side and all the other stuff on the other side. I'm actually going to space this out a little bit more to enable me to write things nicely lined up. Okay, so ax plus 1 equals 2x plus b. So the problem here is that I've got x things on both sides. So ax plus 1, if I take away the 1 from that, it disappears. And then over here, 2x plus b. And then I've got to take away 1 because I'm taking away 1 from both sides. But I've still got some x's on the left and some x's on the right. So I'd quite like to get rid of the x's on the right. So I'm going to get rid of the x's on the right by taking away 2x, so it disappears there. But then I've got to take away 2x from the other side as well, because it's like a balance. So ax minus 2x, because I'm taking away 2x from both sides. So ax minus 2x equals b minus 1. Now this is where it's slightly easier for the MYP3s than it is for the MYP2s, because what I'm going to do with this is factorize it. So because both of these have got an x in them, I can write it as x times something in some brackets. And I'm asking myself the question, what have I got to have inside the brackets that when I multiply it by the x gives me the term I started with? So x times something has got to give me ax. That's going to give b and a. And then x times something has got to give me minus 2x. So that's going to have to be a minus 2. So the x times minus 2 will give me the minus 2x. So all I've done there is written the left-hand side in a slightly different way by taking out a factor of x from both terms. So if you're MYP2, especially the MYP2 person that mailed me, that is a bit above the level for MYP2, so don't worry too much, but hopefully with a bit of help you can follow the procedure, and we'll do more about the topic of factorization in MYP2. Anyway, this is saying x times this bracket is b minus 1. So if I divide everything by the stuff in the bracket so that I get x on its own, then I can do the same the other side. So b minus 1, but then divided by the thing that was in the bracket, which was a minus 2. And then that's a final answer of x equals b minus 1 over a minus 2. I will be back in 20 seconds whilst I just get a wet cloth to wipe that board with. Okay, here we go again. Do give me a thumbs up if you're watching. It would be good to know that somebody's out there. So just to get a reaction, not because I particularly need a thumbs up. And the next one. So 9x minus w equals vx plus y, it says on mine. One thumbs up, thank you. Okay, so again, we're trying to rearrange this to make x the subject. So we're trying to rearrange it as x equals something. So I've got 9x minus w and some stuff on the other side. I'd quite like to get this x bit on its own. So I'm going to get rid of the minus w by adding w, and that cancels out the minus w. But because an equation is like a balance, if I'm adding w to the left, I've also got to add w to the right. So I'm adding a w to both sides. And I've got 9x equals vx plus y plus w. So the adding w has made the minus w disappear on the left, but on the right we've added w as well because an equation is like a balance. Okay, so I've got an x term on its own on the left, I've got some other things and something with an x on the right. So I'm trying to get all of my x on the left. So I'm going to take away that vx. So I'm subtracting the term vx, v times x, from the right. But because an equation is like a balance, then I've got to do the same on the left as well. So I'm subtracting vx, v times x, from both sides, left and right. And that's given me 9x minus vx equals y plus w. So the point of having done all of that is to get all the x stuff on one side and all the other stuff on the other side. So I've got 9x minus vx on the left. Both of those terms have an x in. So I can factor out the x and say that's the same as x times something in brackets. So because both of these terms have got an x in, they can both be divided by x. So I can take an x outside the brackets and factorize it. So now I'm asking myself the question, x times what inside the brackets will give me the 9x, and that's 9. And then x times what in the brackets will give me the minus vx. So the answer to that is minus v. So I factorized the left-hand side and turn this into x times 9 minus v equals y plus w. So I'd quite like the x on its own, so I'm dividing by everything that's in that bracket. And if I divide both sides by the bracket, so I'm dividing by 9 minus v on the left to make the bracket disappear, but I'm also dividing by 9 minus v on the right, so that I get y plus w divided by 9 minus v. And that's the final answer to that one. That x equals y plus w over 9 minus v. I realize it can be confusing with all of the letters in there rather than numbers, but the fundamental principle of it, doing the same to the left as you do to the right, is fairly straightforward. Okay, down to one viewer. I wonder if that's just me. Okay, 8 minus wx equals vx minus 5. So I've got x's on the left and x's on the right. So there's two ways I could get rid of x's. I could take away vx from the right to make vx disappear, or I've got a minus wx here. So to make that disappear, I would have to add a w times x to both sides. So actually what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add wx to both sides, and then that cancels out the minus wx, and we just get an 8. But then I've got to do plus wx on the other side as well. So what I had before, plus wx. Let's just get rid of that little thing there. Okay, so I've got all of my x's on the right now. So the reason I did it like that was just to avoid minuses, because if I'd taken away vx from both sides, then I'd have had a lot of minus terms, and that can get messy. So I've got 8 equals vx plus 5 plus wx. I'd quite like to get rid of this 5 because that's not an x term. So I'm going to take away 5 from both sides. So vx, and then just plus wx, and then take away the 5 so it disappears. But I've got to take away 5 on the left as well. So instead of 8, I've got 3. So 3 equals vx plus wx. And those have both got an x in, so I can factor out an x and write it as something in brackets. So x times what in the brackets will give me vx, answer v, and then x times what in the brackets will give me wx, answer w. So I've got 3 equals x times the stuff in this bracket. Now I want to get the x on its own, so I'm going to divide by the whole bracket to just get x. But if I'm dividing by the bracket v plus w on the right, then I've got to divide by the same bracket v plus w on the left. So 3 over v plus w is equal to x, and normally you write that the other way around with the x equal to the other stuff on the right. So final answer, with x as the subject of the equation, x equals 3 over v plus w. Okay, now the last one of this block is really horrible looking with loads of brackets. So it says 8 brackets wx minus v equals 9 brackets x plus v, and we've got to try and rearrange that into x equals something with all the other letters. So I think I'm going to start by multiplying the brackets out. So 8 times wx gives me 8wx. 8 times minus v gives me minus 8v, is equal to 9 times x equals 9x, and 9 times v is 9v. So now that I've multiplied it out, I can start moving the individual terms about and putting all of the things with x on one side and all of the things that don't have x on the other side. So here I've got 8wx, so that's got an x in it, and then minus 8v, that hasn't got an x in it. I'm going to try and get this 8wx on its own because it's got an x in it. So I'm going to add 8v to cancel out the minus 8v. But if I'm adding 8v to the left, I've got to add 8v to the right. So 8wx equals 9x plus 9v plus 8v, or those two can go together and make 17v. So 8wx equals 9x plus 17v. So remember, I'm trying to get all of the x's on the left and all of the non-x stuff on the right. So I've got this 9x on the right at the moment. So I'm going to take that away from the right. So I'm subtracting 9x. But if I'm subtracting 9x from the right, I've got to subtract 9x from the left as well, because it's like a balance. So I get 8wx minus 9x equals 17v. Still looks complicated, but it is getting somewhere, because now I can factor out the x that's in both of these and say that's x times something in brackets. So x times what will give me the 8wx, answer 8w. X times what will give me the minus 9x, answer minus 9. So 8 times this bracket, x times this bracket, 8w minus 9, is equal to 17v. And then I can just get the x on its own by dividing by the whole bracket and saying that x equals 17v divided by 8w minus 9. So I've just divided left and right by that whole bracket, and lo and behold, final answer, x equals 17 over 8w minus 9. Up to 2 viewers. Brilliant. Okay, so I am going to go on to block 2 of those. So as I said, I've set this for MYP2 and 3. It is a little bit above the level for MYP2 because we haven't done factorization in class. Still tricky for MYP3 because there's a lot going on with lots of letters there. I'm just going to get another bit of wet cloth, so back in 20 seconds. Here I am. That's better. Okay, so with fractions, so y equals x over x minus 9. So we're trying to rearrange that as x equals something something with y instead of y equals something something with x. So first thing I always like to get rid of is fractions. So I'm going to get rid of this fraction that says x divided by 9. I'm going to get rid of that by multiplying everything by the whole of x minus 9. And then the multiplying by x minus 9 cancels out the fact that this fraction is dividing by x minus 9, and then you just get the x that's on the top. But because an equation is like a balance, you've got to do the same the other side as well. So I've got to multiply the left-hand side by x minus 9 also. So multiplying by the denominator of the fraction, I get y times x minus 9 equals x. I can multiply that fraction out. Y times x is yx, or I'll write it as xy because it's just convention to do it in alphabetical order. And then minus 9 times y is minus 9y. So xy minus 9y equals x. Remember, I'm trying to get all the x stuff on the one side and all the other stuff on the other side. So I'd quite like to have that xy on its own because it's got an x in it and get rid of this minus 9y. So I'm going to get rid of that by adding 9y to both sides. But then I've got to add 9y to the other side as well to make it balance. So I've got xy equals x plus 9y. So remembering I'm trying to have all of my x on the left and all of my y on the right. I don't want this x to be over here. So I'm going to get rid of that by subtracting x. And then I've got to subtract the other x from the other side to maintain a balance. So xy minus x equals 9y. Having done that, I've now got all of my x terms on the left and all of my non-x terms on the right. And now, because both of these have got an x in, I can factor the x out. So I can write that whole thing as x times something in brackets. So x times what will give me xy, answer y, and x times what will give me minus x, answer minus 1. So x times brackets y minus 1 is equal to 9y. And then I can just get the x bit on its own by dividing by that whole bracket. So x equals 9y, and then I'm dividing it by y minus 1. So that's my final answer. I've gone off the edge there, haven't I? So x equals 9y over y minus 1 is the final answer to that one. Okay, moving on. 2 viewers out there, wonder who you are. Okay, well, now it starts to get trickier. I have to write a little bit smaller, I think. Y equals a minus 8x over bx plus 2. So as always, I don't like fractions, so I'm going to get rid of that fraction by multiplying by the denominator. So if I multiply everything by bx plus 2, then I just get the top bit. But I've got to multiply the other side by bx plus 2 in brackets as well. So y times the whole of the bottom of the fraction, bx plus 2 in brackets, equals the a minus 8x that I had on the top. Now I'm going to multiply these brackets out. So y times bx is bxy, and y times 2 is 2y. So bxy plus 2y equals a minus 8x. Now that I've got this as a bunch of individual terms without messy fractions, I can start to try and get all the x on one side and all the other stuff on the other side. So I've got bxy plus 2y. I'm going to take away the bit that doesn't have an x in it. So I'm going to take away the 2y, but then I've got to take away 2y the other side as well. So I get bxy equals a minus 8x minus 2y. So now I've still got a minus 8x over on the right that I don't want to be there. So I'm going to get rid of that minus 8x by adding 8x to make the minus 8x disappear. But if I'm adding 8x on the right, I've got to add 8x on the left. So bxy plus 8x equals a minus 2y. So now I've got all my x stuff on the left and all my non-x stuff on the right. I'm going to factor out the x. So I'm now asking myself the question, x times what in the brackets will give me bxy? Answer by. And x times what in the brackets will give me 8x? Answer 8. So x times brackets by plus 8 is equal to a minus 2y. And then to get the x on its own, I just need to divide by all of the stuff that's in that bracket and say x equals a minus 2y that was there before, divided by all the stuff in the brackets, by plus 8. Okay, I'm going to leave that there for now. Quite complicated. I think I need to possibly go over it again later in the week when we've got a better connection. We are now, I think, at the time I was supposed to end the stream. Obviously, it's been blighted by technical problems today, so we're a bit shorter. I'm just going to see if I've got any specific emails asking me about things before I go. Okay, so apart from the MYP3 saying that it wasn't working earlier on, nobody else. So this will be available to view later, and then hopefully I'll be able to go over some other stuff later in the week. Do send me an email if you're stuck on anything.